It started as one of those easy, carefree nights, the kind where laughter spills over wine glasses and no one cares about the mess. My living room smelled like pizza and candles, and the air was thick with warmth and gossip. Sophie, always the bold one, leaned forward with that sparkle in her eye that usually meant trouble. "Okay, girls, new game idea," she said, grinning like a cat with a secret. "We're calling it the loyalty test. Each of us sends a flirty message to our men from a fake number." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. "Oh, come on, that's ridiculous," I said. "Ethan's too honest for that." Maya tilted her head, smirking. "Oh, Lena, they all are, until they're not." I should have stopped there. But there was something contagious about the way they laughed, a mix of mischief and curiosity that I couldn't resist. We sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by half-eaten pizza and empty bottles, our faces glowing in the soft light. Sophie grabbed her phone, her fingers dancing across the screen. "Just for fun," she insisted, her voice teasing but persuasive. I hesitated, my heart thudding faster than it should have. I trusted Ethan. I really did. But what harm could one little message do, right? "What should I even say?" I asked, trying to sound casual while my stomach knotted. Maya grinned, leaning closer. "Start simple. Hey, handsome, saw you at the gym today." Sophie laughed. "Perfect. Let's see how long it takes before he says something stupid." I typed the words slowly, each one feeling heavier than it should have. When I finally hit send, I tossed my phone onto the couch like it was hot. The girls cheered, but underneath their laughter, I felt something shift, something I couldn't quite name yet. At first, it was just a joke, a silly game born from too much wine and too much curiosity. We were still laughing when my phone buzzed. I remember the sound cutting through the music, sharp and sudden. I grabbed it, expecting a notification or some random ad, but when I saw Ethan's name pop up, my breath caught. "Haha, didn't expect that. You look familiar. Do I know you?" he'd written. My heart stumbled in my chest. For a second, I thought maybe it was innocent. Maybe he was just being polite. "See?" I said, forcing a laugh that came out thinner than I wanted. "He's just joking around." But Sophie and Maya didn't laugh this time. They leaned in, reading the message over my shoulder. The room felt quieter, the candlelight somehow dimmer. Sophie's brow furrowed as she said softly, "Text him again." My fingers hesitated above the screen. Part of me wanted to delete everything, to pretend none of this ever happened. But another part, the one that needed to know, started typing. "You sound like a man who's bored at home," I wrote, my hands trembling. The reply came faster than I expected. "Maybe I am. Maybe I could use a little excitement." It felt like someone had punched the air out of me. The laughter, the wine, the warmth, it all vanished in an instant. Maya's voice broke the silence. "Lena, that's not just being polite." I nodded, staring at the screen like it might change if I blinked hard enough. That's when something inside me began to harden, a quiet, cold resolve that started to drown out the hurt. I stared at the phone, my reflection flickering faintly on the screen. Ethan's words felt foreign, like they belonged to someone I didn't know. "You're gorgeous. I wish my wife dressed like that sometimes." That was the next message, cruel in its simplicity. The kind of line that tears through the skin without leaving a visible mark. Sophie exhaled slowly, shaking her head. "Keep going," she whispered. "Let's see how far he's willing to go." My throat tightened. I didn't want to see, but I needed to. I needed the truth, even if it burned. So I played along, typing as Chloe, the stranger he seemed so eager to meet. "What if we did something fun?" I wrote. Seconds later, his reply appeared. "Name the time and place." My hands went cold. Maya reached over and touched my arm, her voice soft but steady. "Lena, I'm so sorry." I swallowed hard, staring at the message that ended whatever illusion I'd been living in. "He's really doing this," I whispered. Saying it out loud made it real, heavier somehow. Sophie leaned forward, her tone suddenly sharper, calmer. Then let's do it right, she said. If he wants to meet her, let's make sure he does. I looked up, meeting her eyes, and something inside me shifted again, from heartbreak to determination. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Let's catch him for real. As the night stretched on, I could feel the laughter from earlier echoing in my mind, mocking me. But beneath that, a quiet storm began to rise, one that wouldn't stop until I had my answer. The next morning, I woke up with that heavy feeling in my chest, the one that hits before you even remember why. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, slicing across the room like judgment. My phone was still on the nightstand, face down, as if it too wanted to hide. I told myself not to look, that last night had been nothing but drunken foolishness. But curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. When I unlocked the screen, there it was, another message from Ethan. Couldn't stop thinking about you, it read. My stomach dropped. At first, I tried to laugh it off. I even texted Sophie and Maya, telling them, he's just bored, not bad. They didn't buy it, of course. Sophie called me immediately. Lena, she said, her voice firm, that's not boredom. That's betrayal in slow motion. I wanted to argue, to defend him, but deep down, I knew she was right. I stared at his words again, so casual, so confident, and felt my heart twist with disbelief. Ethan wasn't supposed to be that guy. Not my Ethan. Later that night, I sat on the couch, pretending to watch TV while Ethan scrolled on his phone across the room. Every time the screen lit up, I wondered who was on the other side. My eyes followed his every movement, searching for guilt in the smallest gestures, a smirk, a sigh, anything. The silence between us felt unbearable. When he finally looked up and smiled, asking if I wanted ice cream, I nearly laughed at the absurdity. How could he look so calm while my world was already cracking? That night, after he'd gone to bed, I reopened the fake profile. My heart raced as I typed another message, this time from Chloe. You sound like a man who's bored at home, I wrote, my hands trembling just slightly. The response came quicker than I expected. Maybe I am. Maybe I could use a little excitement. The words glared at me from the screen. I read them again and again until they blurred. My chest tightened, my throat dry. I'd half hoped he'd ignore it, that it would all end as a cruel joke. But no, Ethan wasn't just flirting, he was looking. I could hear his soft snore from the bedroom, that familiar rhythm that once comforted me. But now it just made me sick. I stared at his sleeping silhouette through the half-open door, wondering how many times I'd mistaken his silence for peace. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not yet. I just needed to understand how we'd gotten here. Maybe he felt unseen. Maybe I'd changed. I clung to those excuses like a lifeline, because blaming myself felt easier than accepting that he'd chosen to betray me. The next day, over coffee, I tried to act normal. Rough night? I asked casually, watching him from across the kitchen table. He smiled, rubbing his eyes. Yeah, just work stuff, he said. His phone buzzed right after, and my heart skipped. He turned it face down without even checking. That tiny motion, so deliberate, so practiced, hit me harder than any confession could. I didn't say a word. I just sipped my coffee, tasting the bitterness that wasn't from the roast. By evening, the tension in the air felt thick enough to cut. I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through Ethan's messages like someone watching a slow-motion car crash. Every new text chipped away at what I thought I knew. You're gorgeous, he'd written again to me, to Chloe. I wish my wife dressed like that sometimes. I actually flinched when I read it. Those words weren't just cruel. They were calculated. The kind of thing you say when you've already crossed the line but want to pretend you haven't. Maya came over that night, carrying wine and silence. She didn't need to ask. One look at my face was enough. Lena, she whispered, setting the bottle down. He's not just flirting, he's trying. I nodded, the tears already threatening. I thought he was different, I said, my voice small. He's always been so steady, so safe. Sophie joined us soon after, her usual fire dimmed but not gone. "Don't cry for him," she said, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Cry if you need to, but after that we make a plan." That word, plan, snapped something inside me. I wiped my cheeks and looked up. "He wants excitement?" I said quietly. "Then he's about to get it." The pain hadn't gone away, not even close, but it was changing shape, turning sharper, cleaner. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was purpose. And as I sat there between my two best friends, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control, and I was finally ready to take mine back. 2 days later, the game had stopped feeling like a game. It had turned into something darker, a mission, maybe, or a quiet form of revenge wrapped in lipstick and composure. I kept the fake conversation going, pretending to be Chloe. Each message from Ethan came faster, flirtier, more shameless. He joked about getting caught, about needing a thrill, as if infidelity were a hobby, not a betrayal. Every word tightened the knot in my stomach, but I stayed calm. I needed him to reveal himself completely, no excuses left. When he finally suggested meeting in person, my hands went cold. "Name the place," he wrote. I stared at the blinking cursor for what felt like an hour before replying. "Downtown Cafe, tomorrow at 6. The moment I pressed send, my pulse spiked. I walked into the kitchen where Maya and Sophie were waiting, both pretending not to hover. "Tomorrow, 6 p.m., I said flatly. "He thinks he's meeting Chloe." Sophie's lips curved into that dangerous smile she saves for moments like this. "And instead," she said softly, "he'll be meeting his wife." I spent that night pacing. Sleep was impossible. My mind replayed every moment, our wedding vows, the laughter, the nights I'd stayed up waiting for him to come home. I thought of all the times I'd chosen trust when I should have chosen myself. By morning, the sadness had hardened into steel. I opened my closet, scanning for something that felt like armor. When I slipped into that black dress, simple, strong, it wasn't for him. It was for the woman who'd spent years believing loyalty was a guarantee. Tomorrow, I'd finally prove it wasn't. The next day moved painfully slow. Every tick of the clock a reminder of what was coming. Maya kept texting me little pep talks. "You've got this. Remember who you are." Sophie, on the other hand, was all strategy. "We'll sit near the back," she said over the phone. "Record everything. You just walk in, keep your head high, and let him see what he threw away." I didn't respond right away. My throat was tight. It wasn't anger I felt. Not anymore. It was a kind of mourning, for the woman who'd once believed she was loved without question. By 5:45, I was standing outside the cafe, watching the world move as if nothing extraordinary was about to happen. The smell of roasted coffee beans mixed with the crisp city air, and people passed by laughing, holding hands, living their ordinary moments. I envied them for a heartbeat. Then I saw him, Ethan, my husband, my liar. He walked in wearing the shirt I'd given him for our anniversary, his hair styled, his expression hopeful. My stomach twisted, but my feet stayed rooted. This was it. No backing out. Inside, Sophie and Maya were already seated in a corner booth, pretending to chat while their phones discreetly faced the entrance. Ethan checked his phone, scanning the cafe for Chloe. I watched as he adjusted his collar, his nervous smile growing faintly. The irony almost made me laugh. For once, he wasn't looking at his phone like a secret keeper. He was looking for a fantasy, and he had no idea that fantasy was about to look him dead in the eye. I waited until he'd ordered his drink before stepping out from behind the corner. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my face was calm, cold. He looked up when I approached, expecting someone else. "Sorry, Ethan," I said, my voice steady, almost too steady. "Chloe couldn't make it, but your wife did." His expression froze. For a moment, I saw every emotion flicker across his face. Shock, confusion, guilt, like a film on fast forward. "Lolina?" he stammered. "What are you doing here?" What am I doing here? I repeated, setting my purse on the table like it weighed nothing. I'm testing something I thought we still had. Loyalty. His jaw tightened, his hands fidgeting with the napkin. Around us, the cafe fell silent, every whisper of steam and chatter fading into the background. Sophie's phone was already recording, but I didn't care who was watching anymore. All I could see was him, the man who'd promised forever but settled for convenience. You wanted excitement? I said quietly. Here it is. He tried to laugh it off, that same nervous chuckle he used when he got caught lying about little things. But this wasn't little. Lena, come on, I didn't mean anything by it, he said. It was just harmless fun. I leaned forward, my tone cutting through his excuses like glass. You don't get to call betrayal harmless. He opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. I stood up, took one last look at him, the man who had everything and threw it away, and turned toward the door. The game was over, but the real reckoning hadn't even begun. He followed me outside, his footsteps quick and uneven, the sound of desperation echoing against the quiet evening air. Lena, wait, he called out, his voice trembling somewhere between fear and shame. I stopped but didn't turn around right away. I wanted him to feel the silence, the weight of everything he'd broken. When I finally turned, his face was pale, his eyes darting between mine as if searching for the version of me who still forgave easily. But she was gone. This isn't what it looks like, he blurted. I was just joking around. Flirting with strangers? Saying you wish your wife dressed differently? I said, my tone sharp, each word deliberate. That's your idea of a joke? He ran a hand through his hair, his voice cracking. It didn't mean anything, Lena, I swear. I almost laughed. Almost. You said you wanted excitement, I replied softly. How's this for excitement? Sophie and Maya stood near the cafe entrance, phones in hand, their eyes locked on me. Ethan noticed them, panic flashing across his face. Turn that off, he hissed. This is private. I took a step closer, closing the space between us. No, Ethan, I said, my voice steady. Our marriage stopped being private the moment you decided to turn it into entertainment. He opened his mouth again, but the words never came. I could see him struggling to grasp control, to rewrite the story like he always did, but I wasn't playing along this time. I reached into my pocket, feeling the cool metal of my wedding ring press against my palm. You said you wanted freedom, I said, meeting his eyes. Congratulations, you're single now. I placed my wedding ring in his coffee cup, watching it sink slowly to the bottom, catching the light before disappearing beneath the dark liquid. He stared at it, wide-eyed, like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. Maybe it was finally sinking in, that I wasn't bluffing, that there wasn't going to be another round of apologies and empty promises. Around us, people were whispering, their eyes flicking between us. I didn't care. Let them watch. For once, I wasn't the one hiding. Lena, please, he said, his voice breaking. Can we talk about this at home? Away from... His glance flicked toward the crowd, toward the phones pointed in his direction. This? I interrupted, my voice calm but unyielding. You mean the mess you made? He reached for my hand, but I stepped back before he could touch me. That simple motion, the recoil, made his face twist with something almost like fear. Maybe for the first time, he realized I wasn't the woman he could manipulate anymore. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air sting my lungs. You said you wanted to feel alive again, I said. Well, I hope this does it. His lips parted, but he didn't move, didn't fight back. The silence between us felt heavier than any scream. Sophie walked closer, her camera still rolling, and Ethan's voice rose with panic. Sophie, turn that off, he barked. She didn't even flinch. I looked at him one last time, memorizing the face of the man who taught me that loyalty without respect is just a trap. Then I turned away, leaving him standing there with his guilt and his ring-stained coffee. As I walked away, the sound of my heels against the pavement felt louder than his voice calling after me. Each step was a release, 5 years of love, doubt, forgiveness, all breaking off piece by piece. Sophie and Maya caught up to me outside, their eyes searching my face for cracks. "You okay?" Maya asked softly. I nodded, though my throat felt tight. "No," I admitted after a pause, "but I will be." Behind us, through the cafe's glass, Ethan still stood frozen, one hand on his head, the other hovering over the cup that now held the weight of everything he'd lost. We didn't say much on the drive home. The night felt thick with silence, but not the painful kind, the cleansing kind, the kind that follows a storm. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past. Somewhere between stoplights, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. The anger had burned out, leaving something quieter. Clarity. The kind that hurts, but also heals. Sophie reached over and squeezed my hand. No words needed. That small gesture said everything. You're not alone. Not tonight. When I finally got home, the emptiness didn't scare me. I walked through each room, seeing the memories scattered everywhere. Photos, gifts, traces of a life I thought was real. But instead of falling apart, I started gathering things that were mine. Not ours, mine. I placed them neatly in a box and set it by the door. Tomorrow he could take what he wanted. The rest I'd rebuild on my own. As I turned off the lights, I caught my reflection in the mirror, eyes tired but steady. The kind of steady that comes after choosing yourself. The video spread faster than I ever imagined. At first, it was just a clip shared among friends. Whispers in group chats, a few gasps, a few messages that began with, "I can't believe he..." But within days, it traveled further, slipping through social circles and into his workplace. When Ethan's boss called him in for a private discussion, I didn't need details. I could already picture the look on his face, the mix of humiliation and regret that comes too late to fix anything. For once, I didn't feel pity. Actions have echoes, and his were finally catching up to him. A week later, there was a knock on my door. I knew it was him before I even looked. His car was parked crooked in the driveway, headlights still on. I opened the door halfway. He looked exhausted, eyes bloodshot, shirt wrinkled, that defeated kind of posture that comes from losing more than just pride. "Lena, please," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. He swallowed hard. "I made a mistake, a stupid, selfish mistake. But we can fix this. I can fix this." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You can't fix something you kept breaking on purpose," I said evenly. He stepped closer, desperate now. "I can change. I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want me to do." For a moment, I almost felt the old pull, the instinct to comfort, to forgive. But that woman, the one who always bent until she nearly broke, wasn't standing there anymore. "You want to do something?" I said softly. "Start by walking away." His lips parted to protest, but I closed the door before he could say another word. After I shut the door, I stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet. His shadow lingered against the glass for a few seconds before it disappeared, swallowed by the night. The sound of his car engine starting felt like punctuation, the final period at the end of a chapter I'd been too afraid to close. I exhaled deeply, realizing I'd been holding my breath for years, not minutes. The silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat at the table that had once felt too big for one. Now, it felt just right. Over the next few days, I started noticing little changes. I slept through the night without waiting for his text. The coffee tasted stronger. The air in the house felt lighter. Even the sunlight seemed to find me again, slipping through the curtains like a quiet apology from the universe. I wasn't pretending to be okay. I was okay, or at least on my way there. Maya and Sophie checked on me constantly, bringing food, laughter, and the kind of friendship that doesn't ask for explanations. They didn't pity me. They reminded me of who I'd been before him. One night, the three of us sat on my couch again, the same spot where it all started. Wine glasses in hand, the same easy laughter filling the air. To friendship, Maya said, raising her glass. The only loyalty test that matters. Sophie smirked. And to the woman who passed hers with flying colors. I smiled, clinking my glass against theirs. To new beginnings, I said, feeling the words settle deep inside me, and to never settling for half-hearted love again. It wasn't just a toast. It was a promise. As laughter filled the room, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I almost ignored it, almost. But the screen lit up, and there it was, a message from an unknown number. Miss you. I stared at it for a second, that old ache threatening to resurface. For a moment, I could almost hear his voice, soft and familiar, saying my name the way he used to when he wanted forgiveness. But the spell broke just as quickly. I picked up the phone, hovered over the screen, and pressed block. No hesitation, no tears, just quiet certainty. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just need to be closed for good. The night carried on around me, laughter, clinking glasses, the hum of a song playing low in the background. Sophie nudged me playfully. Everything okay? She asked. I smiled, really smiled, and nodded. Everything's better than okay. And for the first time in a long while, I meant it. The woman sitting there wasn't defined by what she'd lost. She was defined by what she'd reclaimed, her voice, her peace, her sense of worth. Betrayal had changed me, but not into someone bitter, into someone free. Later, as the night wound down and my friends left, I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. The air felt different, lighter, safer. I thought about everything that had happened, how something meant to destroy me had become the very thing that rebuilt me. A faint smile crossed my lips as I whispered to myself, almost like a vow. He failed the loyalty test, but I passed my own. Months passed, and life began to find its rhythm again. The pain dulled, replaced by a quiet confidence that came from surviving something I once thought would break me. My mornings were peaceful now. No tension, no waiting for texts that never came. I'd wake to the smell of coffee brewing, sunlight spilling across the kitchen table, and a strange but comforting silence. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was space, room for something new, something honest. Every now and then, I'd catch myself smiling for no reason, just grateful for the calm after the storm. Sophie and Maya remained my constants. We met almost every Friday night, sometimes at my place, sometimes at theirs. Same wine, same laughter, but this time the joy was real. No pretending, no underlying ache. One evening, as we toasted to another week of peace and power, I realized how far I'd come. The woman sitting there wasn't defined by betrayal anymore. She was defined by her resilience, by the way she'd faced humiliation and turned it into strength, by how she'd learned that loyalty isn't proven by others. It's something you prove to yourself. Maya raised her glass that night, smiling softly. To friendship, she said, the only loyalty test that matters. Sophie clinked her glass against mine. And to the woman who passed it with flying colors. I laughed, warmth blooming in my chest. To new beginnings, I said, and to never settling for half-hearted love again. The three of us drank, our glasses catching the light, and for the first time in years, I felt entirely whole. Not because someone loved me, but because I'd learned to love myself enough to walk away. As the evening wore on, our laughter blended with the soft hum of the city outside, the sound of life moving forward, one heartbeat at a time. I caught my reflection in the window, the flicker of candlelight dancing across my face, and for the first time, I saw peace instead of pain. Not the kind of peace that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from understanding. I didn't need to erase the past. I just needed to outgrow it. The scars, I realized, weren't ugly reminders. They were proof that I'd healed. Sophie started scrolling through old photos on her phone, laughing as we leaned in. "Remember this?" she said, showing me a picture from that first night, the night we started the loyalty test. We were all smiling, carefree, blissfully unaware of the storm that was coming. I stared at the image, a soft ache stirring in my chest. That feels like a lifetime ago, I murmured. Maya nodded, touching my arm. It was, she said gently. You're not that woman anymore. And she was right. The Lena in that picture believed loyalty meant sacrifice. The Lena now knew it meant self-respect. Later, when the laughter quieted and the candles burned low, I stepped out onto the balcony. The night air was cool, the sky clear and endless. I thought about all the versions of myself that had carried me here. The trusting one, the heartbroken one, the angry one, and now, the free one. I didn't hate Ethan anymore. In a strange way, I was grateful. He had failed me, yes, but in doing so, he'd forced me to choose myself. That was the real test, and I'd passed it with every breath I took since walking away. When I went back inside, the girls were gathering their things, the night winding down. We hugged at the door, long, tight, wordless. Those kinds of hugs that say thank you for staying when everything fell apart. After they left, I stood for a moment in the quiet hum of my apartment, surrounded by the gentle chaos of the night, wine glasses on the table, half-melted candles, laughter still clinging to the air. I felt full, not from the wine or the company, but from the peace that comes when you finally stop fighting to be loved by someone who doesn't know how. I curled up on the couch, scrolling through my phone one last time before bed. That's when I saw it. Another message from an unknown number. Miss you. I didn't even blink this time. My thumb hovered over the screen for a heartbeat, and then I pressed block. Simple. Final. No hesitation, no pain, just quiet strength. The kind that doesn't need closure, because it already found it within. I set the phone aside, exhaled, and smiled. For once, the silence wasn't heavy. It was home. As I turned off the lights, a thought rose in my mind. Not bitter, not triumphant, just true. He failed the loyalty test, but I passed my own. It wasn't revenge that healed me. It was choosing myself after being forgotten. And as the city outside whispered its lullaby of distant sounds, I realized something I should have known all along. Loyalty isn't something you demand. It's something you live every single day, even when no one's watching.